Billionaire's Nanny, single dad romance story. Victoria Thompson pressed her back against the polished mahogany door of Dominic Kane's private study, her breath quick and uneven. The storm outside rattled the glass walls of the Manhattan penthouse, lightning slicing through the dark sky. Dominic stood only a step away, his steel-gray eyes fixed on her with a mix of desire and control. His suit jacket hung open, his tie loose, his usual precision gone. "You think money makes you untouchable," Victoria whispered, her amber eyes steady even as her body betrayed the pull between them. Her voice carried both defiance and something she could no longer deny. Dominic leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. "I take what I want," he said, his tone low and unshaken. "Everything I desire belongs to me." Her lips parted, her chest rising as she fought to keep her ground. "Not me." The words trembled, but she didn't look away. His hand brushed against the door beside her, boxing her in, his touch just shy of her skin. For a moment, the world outside vanished, leaving only the dangerous space between them. What took place in that stormlit study would change both their lives forever. Stay tuned. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe. Let's begin. Victoria Thompson stepped out of the cab and stared up at the towering glass structure of Sterling Heights. The penthouse floors shimmered against the gray Manhattan sky, each window reflecting the wealth and power she had only ever seen from a distance. She clutched her leather folder tight against her chest, the faint outline of her resume pressing through the worn material. Her rent was overdue, her student loans were mounting, and her mother's medical bills weren't going away. This interview was her last chance to stop everything from collapsing. The doorman greeted her with polite detachment, pressing a button that summoned a private elevator. "Mr. Kane is expecting you," he said, his tone more formal than welcoming. Inside the elevator, Victoria tried to steady her nerves. Her reflection in the mirrored walls betrayed both exhaustion and determination. At 28, she had earned her master's degree in child psychology from Columbia University, but life had proven far less forgiving than her professors. She adjusted the blazer she'd bought secondhand from a thrift store, tugging at the sleeves as if doing so could hide the fraying threads. When the doors opened, she stepped directly into a world she had only read about. The penthouse office stretched wide with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Polished wood gleamed beneath her shoes, and every surface carried an air of precision. At the far end, behind an immaculate desk, sat Dominic Kane. He didn't look up right away. His attention was on a series of documents, his pen moving with the same calculated efficiency that had built his empire. When he finally lifted his gaze, Victoria felt the weight of it immediately. His steel-gray eyes locked on her, assessing, measuring. "You're Victoria Thompson," he said, his voice deep, steady, and stripped of warmth. "Yes, Mr. Kane," she replied, stepping forward with cautious confidence. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Sit." The command was simple, but it carried the kind of authority that left no room for refusal. Victoria sat, placing her folder on her lap. She had rehearsed this moment a dozen times in front of her bedroom mirror, yet under his gaze, every line she had practiced slipped away. "I see here you have a master's in child psychology," Dominic said, scanning her resume without looking impressed. "Columbia." "Yes. My focus was developmental trauma in early childhood," she said quickly. "I've also worked in several after-school programs across Brooklyn and interned at a pediatric counseling center." His brow lifted slightly. "Brooklyn, that's where you're from?" "Yes." She sat straighter, refusing to let the slight edge in his tone shake her. "Bedford-Stuyvesant." He nodded slowly, as if filing the information away. "That's not the usual background of candidates I see for this position." Victoria felt her jaw tighten. "Children don't choose the circumstances they're born into. That's something I understand better than most." That made him pause. His pen stilled against the paper, and for the first time, his eyes softened just slightly before hardening again. "You know this position involves discretion," he said. "My daughter has been through a great deal, and I will not expose her to instability." Victoria leaned forward. I'm not unstable. I'm qualified. And more importantly, I care about children who've experienced loss. At the mention of loss, Dominic's expression flickered. He sat back in his chair, his voice lowering. My wife died 2 years ago. Lily, my daughter, was 3 at the time. She's 5 now. She needs consistency. She needs, he trailed off, as if admitting the need out loud cost him something. Someone who won't run the moment things get difficult. Victoria's heart tugged at the raw honesty buried in his words. She nodded. That's why I'm here. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant hum of the storm outside. For a moment, it was as if they were both testing how much of themselves they were willing to reveal. You should know, Dominic said finally. Others have tried. They couldn't handle my expectations. I run a company worth over $2 billion. My time is valuable, and I don't tolerate mistakes. If you take this position, you will answer directly to me. The words carried warning, but also something else, an undercurrent of control that made her chest tighten. She couldn't tell if it was intimidation or intrigue, perhaps both. I understand, she said. His eyes lingered on her a moment longer before he rose from his chair. The sheer height and presence of him filled the space as he walked toward the windows, the city stretching endlessly behind him. He clasped his hands behind his back, his reflection merging with the skyline. You'll meet Lily this evening if you choose to accept, he said without turning. But I'll be clear. I don't have patience for hesitation. Victoria hesitated anyway, her instincts screaming that this was a dangerous world to step into. Yet she thought of her overdue rent, her mother's medicine, her younger sister depending on her. Walking away wasn't an option. I accept, she said firmly. Dominic turned, and for the first time since she'd arrived, a faint smile touched his lips. It wasn't warm, but it carried something sharper, an acknowledgement that she had crossed an invisible line. Good, he said simply. You start tomorrow. Victoria gathered her things, her pulse racing. As the elevator doors closed behind her, she realized she hadn't just accepted a job. She had stepped into a life where nothing would ever be simple again. The first week inside Sterling Heights tested Victoria in ways she hadn't expected. The penthouse felt more like a museum than a home, its marble floors and sleek furniture too pristine for a child to thrive in. Yet Lily, a fragile 5-year-old with wide brown eyes, lived in its vast silence. She rarely spoke more than a few words at a time, preferring to curl into corners with her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Victoria approached her gently, introducing small activities each day, drawing in the sunroom, reading by the window, building towers from colored blocks. Lily responded slowly, but there were moments when her laughter broke through, startling even herself. Dominic often lingered at the edges during these interactions, watching his daughter with a mixture of pride and sorrow that weighed heavy across the room. At night, Victoria sometimes caught him alone in the study. The city lights poured through the glass walls while he sat at his desk, a glass of bourbon beside him, his shoulders rigid. Grief clung to him in ways he refused to acknowledge, though his silence spoke louder than words. Their paths began to cross in unplanned ways. Once, she found him asleep on the couch, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, Lily's small blanket draped across his chest. Another time, he entered the kitchen while she prepared Lily's bedtime snack. His presence filled the room instantly, the tension between them undeniable. You're settling in, he said, his eyes scanning her as if evaluating more than her job performance. I'm trying, Victoria replied, her hands steady as she sliced strawberries. Their conversations were brief, yet each carried an intensity that left her unsettled. She reminded herself constantly, he was her employer, nothing more. Still, the lines between professional and personal blurred with every encounter. The storm arrived during her 3rd week. It began as heavy rain tapping against the glass, escalating into thunder that shook the walls. The power snapped off suddenly, plunging the penthouse into shadows lit only by flashes of lightning. Victoria tucked Lily into bed, humming softly until the child's breathing evened. When she stepped into the hall, she noticed a faint glow from the study. Dominic was there, a half-empty glass in his hand, staring out at the storm-darkened city. "You should rest," she said gently from the doorway. He turned, his face drawn, the sharp control she had come to expect softened by something rawer. "Nights like this," he said quietly, "I remember everything I lost." Victoria entered slowly, her voice calm. "You don't have to carry it alone." For a moment, he said nothing. His gaze moved from her face to the lightning flashing across the windows, as though the storm outside reflected the turmoil inside him. When his eyes returned to hers, they held an intensity that made her chest tighten. "You don't understand what you're offering," he murmured. "I understand perfectly," she replied, her steps closing the distance between them. "You're human, no matter what the world sees." The silence that followed felt charged, each second stretching longer than it should. His hand reached for her face, hesitant at first, then firm. Her breath caught as he kissed her, urgent and consuming, the storm raging behind them. The kiss was wrong, every rule of professionalism broken in an instant, yet it felt inevitable. Her body leaned into his, betraying the protest in her mind. His hands traced the outline of her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, the storm outside echoing the chaos within. "This can't happen," Victoria whispered, though her lips still burned from his touch. "It already has," Dominic replied, his voice low and steady. She stepped back, her thoughts racing. Every warning she had given herself before taking this job now pressed down on her. Yet she couldn't deny the pull between them, the way her heart raced when he was near, the way his vulnerability shattered the walls he had built. Over the following days, they said nothing about the kiss, but the silence was heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. Their glances lingered too long. Their conversations carried undercurrents they both felt but didn't name. Late one night, she passed him in the hallway. He stopped, his eyes searching hers, and for a moment she thought he would kiss her again. Instead, he only said, "We're in dangerous territory." She nodded, her voice soft. "I know." The danger was clear. She could lose her job, her reputation, everything she had worked for. Yet when Dominic Kane looked at her, she felt both the risk and the irresistible pull of a connection she had no strength to resist. By the end of the month, their secret had begun, not declared, not defined, but alive in every charged glance and every stolen moment that carried them further from the safety of boundaries. The first time it happened, it was late at night in the private elevator that carried them from the ground floor straight into the penthouse. Victoria had been returning from buying supplies for Lily's art therapy sessions when Dominic stepped in unexpectedly. The space felt smaller than ever with his presence so close. Neither spoke at first. The hum of the machinery and the glow of the numbers above were the only sounds. When the elevator jolted to a stop between floors, a temporary glitch that froze them in silence, Dominic's hand brushed hers. The touch lingered too long to be accidental. She looked up, meeting his gaze, and in that compressed moment, restraint shattered. His lips found hers, urgent but restrained by the walls that confined them. By the time the elevator doors opened, both were breathless, their professional roles blurred beyond repair. Those stolen moments grew. Sometimes in his office after Lily had gone to bed, she would stop by with reports about the little girl's progress. Dominic would listen, his steel-gray eyes softening as Victoria described Lily's laughter or her first attempts at speaking openly about her mother. The discussions often ended with him pulling her close, their embrace a mixture of gratitude, longing, and something neither dared to name. Outside their hidden world, Victoria was making visible changes. Lily's nightmares came less frequently, replaced by mornings filled with drawings of bright suns and families holding hands. Dominic began to notice too. He attended a school play for the first time, sitting stiffly in the auditorium while Victoria held Lily's hand backstage. When the little girl spotted him in the crowd, her eyes lit up with a joy that brought tears to his. "You did that," Dominic told Victoria later, his voice rough with unspoken emotions. "No," she corrected softly. "She did it. She's stronger than either of us give her credit for." Still, the intimacy between them deepened, stretching beyond physical desire. He began to share things with her, fears about business decisions, guilt over his wife's death, late-night confessions whispered when the world was quiet. Victoria listened, offering neither judgment nor false reassurance, only presence. For him, that was more powerful than any deal he had ever closed. Yet not everyone welcomed her presence in his life. At a board dinner, where Dominic insisted she attend as Lily's caregiver, the sideways glances were sharp, the whispers hardly concealed. Comments dripped with coded disapproval, remarks about unusual choices and maintaining appearances. A few directed their curiosity at Victoria directly, asking where she was from, their tones making it clear the question was not about geography, but class and race. Dominic shut down the worst of it with curt responses, but Victoria carried the weight of those interactions home with her. Later that night, she called her sister Jasmine. "You're playing with fire," Jasmine warned, her voice clipped. "Men like him, rich, powerful, white, they don't see us as equals. They see us as a phase. You need to protect yourself." Victoria pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaustion in every word. "It's not like that. He's not like that." "Of course he's like that," Jasmine snapped. "They always are. You think because he kisses you when no one's watching it means he'll stand by you when the world is watching? Wake up, V. He's a billionaire. You're an employee." The call ended in silence, but the words lingered long after. Victoria knew the risks, yet the pull of what she felt for Dominic only grew. Their most intimate moments weren't always physical. One night, she found him sitting on the floor of his study, his phone in hand, replaying old videos of his late wife. His shoulders shook, his composure breaking in a way no one else had likely ever seen. Without a word, she lowered herself beside him and wrapped her arms around his trembling frame. "She would want you to live," Victoria whispered, "not just survive." He turned to her, his face wet with tears, and kissed her with a desperation that wasn't about possession, but about clinging to something that felt like salvation. From that point forward, their secret relationship deepened. They no longer denied what was happening between them. In Lily's laughter, in Dominic's late-night vulnerability, in the way Victoria began to see herself not just as a nanny, but as part of something larger, the bond between the three grew undeniable. It was dangerous, yes, but also irresistible. The professional lines were gone, replaced by something far more complicated. A family forming in the shadows of privilege and power, bound not only by passion, but by the fragile healing they all desperately needed. The night of the charity gala at the Met Museum was supposed to be a flawless display of wealth and influence. Dominic Kane stood at the entrance in his tailored tuxedo, his presence commanding as photographers flashed cameras along the red carpet. At his side was Victoria, dressed in a deep emerald gown borrowed from a designer friend of his. She looked stunning, but her unease was clear in the way she held her clutch tightly against her body. "You don't have to stay glued to me," Dominic whispered, his hand brushing the small of her back as they stepped inside. "Yes, I do," she muttered under her breath. "I shouldn't even be here." The evening unfolded beneath marble columns and glittering chandeliers. Patrons mingled with champagne flutes in hand, and orchestral music filled the halls. Dominic was expected to deliver remarks on behalf of his foundation, but all eyes seemed to linger on Victoria. Guests whispered behind manicured hands, their curiosity obvious. To them, she was not just his daughter's nanny. She was an anomaly in a space that rarely welcomed women like her. When Dominic finally took the stage, Victoria slipped to the edge of the room, hoping to disappear into the background. But as he spoke about legacy and responsibility, his eyes found hers in the crowd. It wasn't a fleeting glance. It was lingering, personal, unmistakable. The moment stretched just long enough for the wrong people to notice. By the time they exited the museum, the damage was done. Paparazzi swarmed, snapping photos of Dominic's hand clasping Victoria's as he shielded her from the crowd. Shouts filled the air. "Is she your girlfriend? The nanny? Are you serious about her?" Cameras captured every angle. The protective tilt of his body toward hers, the startled expression on her face. The next morning, the photos were everywhere. Headlines screamed across glossy magazines and digital tabloids, "Billionaire and Nanny, secret romance exposed." Some framed it as scandal, others as intrigue. The comment sections were far worse. Words dripped with cruelty, targeting Victoria's skin color, her background, her audacity to stand beside a man like Dominic Kane. Her phone buzzed endlessly with calls and texts. Friends from Brooklyn reached out with concern. Her sister Jasmine's voice was sharp when she answered. "Didn't I tell you this would happen? They don't see you as someone worthy, V. They see you as a scandal." Victoria closed her eyes, pressing the phone to her ear as the weight of it all settled in. "It's not that simple." "It is," Jasmine snapped. "This is what happens when you step into their world. They will tear you apart, and he won't be the one who pays the price. You will." At the penthouse, the fallout was immediate. Dominic stormed into a board meeting where his executives looked at him not as their leader, but as a liability. Investors worried about optics, public image, potential boycotts. One older board member cleared his throat before speaking bluntly. "Your personal choices are your own, Dominic, but when they threaten the company, they become everyone's concern." Dominic's jaw clenched as he fired back. "My personal life has nothing to do with quarterly earnings." On the contrary, another cut in. "Your name is the company. Right now, you're not just a distraction, you're a scandal." By the end of the meeting, Dominic knew what they wanted: distance. A public statement, perhaps even a denial. For the first time in years, his authority felt shaky. Meanwhile, Victoria was facing a storm of her own. Online, she was branded everything from opportunist to homewrecker. Strangers dissected her degree, her upbringing, her family. A grainy photo of her mother's modest home in Brooklyn was shared with mocking captions about how far she'd climbed. Her father called that evening, his tone heavy with worry. "Victoria, this is too much. You don't need this. You've worked hard for your degree, for your career. Don't let this man destroy you." But when she looked at Dominic, at Lily clinging to her leg, asking why people were being mean to her nanny, walking away wasn't so simple. One night, after putting Lily to bed, Victoria stood at the balcony with Dominic. The city stretched beneath them, alive with light and sound, yet she felt suffocated. "This is tearing me apart," she confessed. "Your world is crushing me, Dominic. I can't breathe in it." He turned to her, his expression fierce. "I won't let them destroy what we have. I'll fight for you." Her voice trembled. "But will you fight for me, or for what you think you own?" The question hung between them, sharp as glass. Neither spoke again that night, but both knew the truth. The scandal had forced them to a breaking point. Victoria packed in silence. The penthouse closet that once felt like a gilded cage now looked like a battlefield of dresses she never asked for, jewelry boxes she never opened, and gifts that screamed ownership rather than affection. She folded only what was hers: simple blouses, worn jeans, a few pairs of flats, ignoring the tailored gowns Dominic had insisted she wear at events. When the elevator doors closed behind her for the last time, her chest felt lighter. She left without goodbye, without confrontation, only a handwritten note for Lily tucked into the child's nightstand. "You are brave, you are loved, and you are never alone." Dominic read it before Lily did. His fist tightened around the paper, his jaw set. To him, her leaving wasn't an act of independence. It was betrayal. By morning, Victoria was in Queens, renting a modest apartment with thin walls and a view of a busy street corner. The noise of children playing outside, buses rumbling past, and neighbors greeting each other felt grounding, a return to the life she understood. She took freelance counseling work, setting up shop in a community office that barely held 2 chairs and a desk, but it was hers. It was freedom, or it should have been. The calls started first. Unknown numbers that went silent when she answered. Texts that arrived late at night. "Are you safe? Did you eat today?" They read like concern, but the frequency unsettled her. Next came the subtle intrusions. Groceries delivered to her door she never ordered, premium cuts of salmon, bottles of imported wine, brands she recognized from his kitchen. She returned them, but they kept arriving. When the letter arrived from her loan provider, she almost didn't open it. Buried under bills, it caught her attention only because the envelope looked official. She tore it open and froze. The balance on her student loans read paid in full. The number that had haunted her for years was gone, erased in a single transaction. She didn't need to ask who had done it. That night, she called Dominic, her voice tight with fury. "You had no right." His tone was calm, controlled. "I had every right. You were drowning in debt. I fixed it." "You don't fix people, Dominic. You don't own them." "I don't own you," he said, but his voice betrayed him. "I love you. There's a difference." "No," Victoria snapped, her hands trembling around the phone. "Love asks. Love respects. You don't know how to do either. What you're doing, it's control." There was silence, long and heavy. Then his voice dropped lower. "You think queens can protect you from me? You think distance changes what you feel? You belong with me. With us. Lily cries for you every night." Her throat closed at the mention of Lily, but she forced herself to speak. "Don't use her as leverage. She's a child, not your pawn. I won't come back." She ended the call before he could answer, tossing the phone onto her couch as if it burned her hand. Still, his shadow loomed. Walking home from the community office, she noticed sleek black cars idling near her block, engines running. No one inside looked at her directly, but she felt their presence. At night, she swore she heard footsteps following half a block behind. She started changing her routes, ducking into crowded bodegas, watching reflections in store windows for confirmation. One evening, Jasmine visited. She spotted the unopened package on the counter, an expensive silk scarf in a branded box, and her expression hardened. "He's not letting you go," Jasmine said flatly. "You need to cut him off completely. Block his number, move if you have to." Victoria sank into her couch, exhausted. "It's not that easy. There's Lily. She needs me. If I vanish, who takes care of her?" "You can't save her if you can't save yourself," Jasmine pressed. "That man doesn't love you, V. He wants to possess you." Victoria didn't argue. She couldn't. Days stretched into weeks, and though Dominic never appeared at her door, his presence lingered in every corner of her life. Flowers arrived at her office despite her protests. An anonymous donor funded her community program, but she knew exactly whose money it was. Every act of generosity felt like a leash tightening around her neck. The final straw came when she spotted a framed photo in Lily's room during a brief visit arranged through the family's driver. It wasn't a photo she had given Lily, but one of her and Dominic together at the gala, downloaded from a magazine cover. Lily clutched it to her chest and whispered, "Daddy says you'll come back soon." Victoria's heart broke. She hugged the little girl, pressing a kiss to her forehead, but the weight of Dominic's words crushed her. That night, she packed again. She couldn't risk staying close. If she wanted a chance at freedom, she needed distance. Not just from Dominic, but from the pull of a child who had grown to depend on her. She moved across the city, deeper into Queens, taking on clients who didn't care about her last name or her connection to a billionaire. She worked long hours, grounding herself in the struggles of ordinary people. Grief counseling for widows, therapy for teenagers wrestling with depression, guidance for parents trying to bridge fractured homes. In their stories, she saw fragments of herself. In their healing, she sought her own. But at night, alone in her apartment, she felt the absence of what she left behind. Dominic's arms, Lily's laughter, the dangerous comfort of belonging to a world she both hated and craved. Dominic, however, did not see absence. He saw opportunity. In his mind, she wasn't gone. She was waiting. Victoria thought she had finally found some stability in her modest walk-up apartment. The building smelled faintly of old paint and fried food from the downstairs deli, but it was hers. She paid her rent on time, greeted her neighbors, and tried to live like any other working woman in Queens. For a few weeks, she almost believed Dominic had accepted her absence. The illusion shattered when her landlord knocked on her door with a folder of paperwork in hand. "New ownership," he explained, almost apologetic. The building's been bought. Big name on the deed. Kane Holdings. Victoria's stomach dropped. She didn't need to see the signature to know who was behind it. Dominic hadn't chased her with words this time. He had bought the walls around her. That same week, the gifts began. A pair of diamond earrings left at her doorstep. No note attached, but no explanation needed. The next day, a leather-bound journal embossed with her initials. By the weekend, an envelope filled with handwritten letters appeared, Dominic's precise script spilling across the pages. He wrote of regret, of desire, of promises to change. Some letters sounded like pleas, others like commands disguised as affection. She stacked them unopened in a drawer, but their presence infected the air of her apartment. Every knock on the door, every rustle of footsteps in the hallway felt like him. It wasn't just gifts. He used Lily as the strongest tether. The little girl would call at night, her voice breaking through the phone. "Daddy says you can visit. Please come. I miss you." Each time, Victoria's resolve wavered. She wanted to protect Lily from being caught in the middle, but Dominic knew exactly how to use that bond. The first encounter came in Central Park. Victoria had taken a different route to avoid him, but Lily spotted her near the carousel, rushing forward with arms wide. "V!" she cried, clinging to her waist. Behind her, Dominic stood with a careful smile, his tailored coat immaculate against the winter chill. "I thought it would be good for her to see you," he said smoothly, as if their reunion had been accidental. "You engineered this," Victoria whispered sharply once Lily ran ahead to the horses. "I gave her what she wanted," he replied, his eyes steady. "You." The pattern repeated across the city. At a coffee shop near her office, Lily would be there with a coloring book, Dominic hovering nearby. On the subway platform, she spotted his figure across the tracks, always watching but never approaching until Lily's small hand pulled her forward. He blurred the line between affection and entrapment, always using his daughter as the bridge she couldn't burn. Victoria tried to fight back with boundaries. She told Dominic in firm, measured words that he couldn't keep inserting himself into her life. He listened with apparent patience, then sent another gift the next day. This time, an envelope filled with receipts showing her loan balances at zero, proof of his influence over every part of her existence. "You don't have to struggle anymore," he said when she confronted him. "I've erased your burdens. Why are you punishing me for loving you?" "Because love isn't control," she snapped. "It isn't buying buildings. It isn't forcing encounters in parks. It isn't twisting Lily into your weapon." For a moment, Dominic's facade cracked. His jaw tightened, his fists curling at his sides. "You think I'm your enemy, but I'm the only one who truly knows you." That was his tactic, making her doubt herself. Each time she resisted, he layered his obsession with tenderness. A memory of their first kiss, a photo of Lily smiling, a reminder of the nights they shared. He wore down her defenses not with threats, but with relentless presence, with an insistence that her life without him was emptier, lonelier, incomplete. The psychological pressure seeped into her daily routine. She found herself distracted during therapy sessions, her thoughts drifting to him. She read his unopened letters at night, even as she told herself she shouldn't. His words, careful, persuasive, burrowed into her mind. "You belong with us. You can't deny what we had. You are already part of this family." Her body betrayed her too. When he brushed against her in public, the spark she hated herself for feeling returned. Desire tangled with anger, making it harder to separate what she wanted from what he demanded. Jasmine noticed the change when she visited again. "You're slipping," her sister warned. "He's pulling you back in, piece by piece." "I know," Victoria whispered, staring at the unopened box of roses on her counter. "But Lily, I can't turn my back on her." "That's what he's counting on," Jasmine replied. "He's using that little girl's love to trap you. Don't mistake his tactics for devotion." Victoria knew her sister was right. Yet at night, when Lily's small voice came through the phone begging her to come home, resistance felt impossible. Dominic didn't need chains. He used love, his daughter's love, their fractured love, the memory of what they had, to keep her tethered. It was pursuit without rest, pressure without reprieve. Every street corner, every unopened envelope, every plea from Lily pulled Victoria closer to the man she was trying so desperately to escape. It was past midnight when a frantic knock rattled Victoria's apartment door. She pulled on a robe, irritation rising until she heard a weak, muffled cough from the hallway. The sound made her heart stop. When she opened the door, Dominic stood there in his long coat, carrying a flushed and trembling Lily in his arms. "She's burning up," he said quickly, his voice sharp with panic. "She kept calling your name. Nothing I did calmed her." Victoria didn't think, didn't argue. She ushered them inside, guiding Dominic toward the small couch where he laid Lily down. Her skin was hot, her forehead slick with sweat. Victoria pressed cool cloths against her cheeks, whispering soft reassurances. The little girl clutched her hand, refusing to let go even in her fevered haze. Hours passed as Victoria stayed by Lily's side, coaxing her to sip water, adjusting blankets, humming lullabies until her restless whimpers quieted. Dominic hovered nearby, stripped of his usual confidence. He sat with his elbows on his knees, watching Victoria with something close to desperation. "You always know how to reach her," he whispered. "It's not magic," she replied gently, though her eyes never left Lily. "She just needs consistency, safety, love she can trust." By dawn, Lily's fever began to break. Exhaustion caught up with the three of them, yet the apartment felt charged. When Dominic finally stood to stretch, his gaze lingered on Victoria in the dim morning light. She was barefoot, her hair loose from the long night, and despite the fatigue etched into her face, he looked at her as if she were the only steady point in his chaotic world. "I don't know what I would have done without you," he murmured. Victoria straightened, her body tense. "You shouldn't have shown up here." "I didn't know where else to go," he admitted, stepping closer. "She needed you. I needed you." The distance between them collapsed. He reached for her hand, and though every instinct told her to pull back, she didn't. The heat of his skin against hers was enough to crack the wall she had tried so hard to build. Months of absence, longing, and unresolved desire surged between them. The kiss that followed was not tentative. It was consuming, urgent, the kind of kiss that reawakened every memory she had tried to bury. His mouth tasted of sleepless nights and restrained hunger. She pressed against him with equal desperation, the months of resistance unraveling under the weight of what they both still felt. They moved together in her small bedroom, not with the polished elegance of his penthouse, but with raw need. Clothes fell away quickly, hands clutched at skin as though reclaiming territory long lost. Their bodies spoke the language their words had failed to express, tangled in a passion that blurred the line between love and obsession. Afterward, as they lay together beneath thin sheets, silence filled the room. Dominic traced the curve of her shoulder with slow, reverent fingers, his eyes softer now, but no less intense. "I can't let you go again," he confessed. "I don't know how." Victoria's chest tightened. She wanted to believe in the tenderness of his touch, the vulnerability in his voice. But she also remembered the letters, the surveillance, the control that had driven her away. "You don't let me go because you don't know how to love without owning," she said quietly. His hand stilled. "I'm not trying to own you. I'm trying to keep you safe. To keep us together. You've been controlling my life, buying my building, paying my debts without asking, following me when I needed space. That's not protection, Dominic. That's fear disguised as love." His jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Yes, I'm afraid. Every day I wake up terrified of losing the only people who matter to me. I already lost my wife. I won't lose you too." Her eyes filled with tears. "But if your love feels like a cage, how can I stay?" The words hung between them, heavy and raw. For the first time, Dominic didn't immediately argue. He looked away, his chest rising and falling unevenly. "I don't know how to love without control," he admitted at last, his voice breaking. "I thought power was the only way to keep the things I care about. But with you, it never feels like enough." Victoria reached for the blanket, pulling it over herself as though it could shield her from the weight of his confession. Her heart ached with the truth she didn't want to face. She loved him, deeply, painfully. But their love was sickened by his need for control and her fear of losing herself. She sat up, gathering her strength. This can't go on. What we have, it's tearing me apart. It's tearing you apart too. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist with urgency. Don't say that. Don't walk away from me again. She looked at him, her amber eyes fierce despite the tears. I have to choose between safety and passion, Dominic. Between who I am and who you want me to be. And right now, I don't know if the fire between us is worth the cost. He let her go slowly, his hand falling to the sheets. His eyes were unreadable, caught between desperation and resignation. In that moment, Victoria realized the truth that terrified her most. Their love was real, but it was also dangerous. Staying meant surrendering pieces of herself. Leaving meant breaking both their hearts and Lily's. The sun rose outside, casting light across the worn walls of her apartment. For Victoria, dawn brought no answers, only the crushing weight of a choice that could no longer be avoided. Victoria stepped into the Sterling Heights penthouse with a clear resolve. She had returned, not as the woman who left in fear, but as one who knew her worth. Every step through the marble-floored lobby reminded her of the power she had once felt diminished, yet now reclaimed. Dominic met her in the study, the room where their first kiss had ignited months of passion, fear, and turmoil. He looked different, not disheveled or desperate, but attentive and cautious. His steel-gray eyes softened as they met hers, a silent acknowledgement that the rules had changed. I'm listening, Victoria said firmly. We can't continue like before. I'm not returning without boundaries. I won't compromise my autonomy, and Lily must never be used to manipulate my decisions again. Dominic swallowed hard, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. I understand. Whatever conditions you set, I'll follow. I want this to work the right way, Victoria. Not the way I forced it before. Her list was precise. No monitoring her movements, no unsolicited gifts, clear separation between work and personal time, and joint decisions regarding Lily's upbringing. For the first time, Dominic nodded in agreement without hesitation or argument. I'm willing to attend couples therapy, he admitted, his voice steady but laced with humility. I need help understanding how to love without controlling. I need to change. Victoria studied him, reading the sincerity beneath the billionaire veneer. She knew it wouldn't be instantaneous, old patterns die hard. But the willingness to confront his flaws was a start. Over the next weeks, they began therapy sessions together. The process was challenging. Victoria voiced her fears. Dominic confronted his insecurities, and slowly, the destructive pattern of obsession gave way to mutual understanding. Arguments still flared, but they learned to resolve conflict without manipulation or intimidation. Conversations replaced demands. Outside the office, they rebuilt their relationship on trust and consent. Shared responsibilities for Lily became a partnership rather than a hierarchy. Victoria guided bedtime routines, Dominic helped with homework, and both learned to respect each other's limits. The child, once caught in their tension, now thrived in an environment where love was steady, not conditional. Victoria realized the depth of her own strength. Returning had not meant surrendering. It had required courage, clarity, and the insistence that love is not ownership. Dominic, for his part, discovered the difference between protecting someone and controlling them, and how vulnerability could coexist with responsibility. Their moments together became intentional and honest. Breakfast on the penthouse terrace, walks through Central Park where Lily led the way, evenings spent discussing life, work, and dreams. They built a new rhythm. Desire was still present, heated at times, but it no longer carried the threat of coercion. One evening, standing on the balcony overlooking Manhattan, Victoria leaned against Dominic as Lily ran ahead to chase pigeons along the rooftop garden. The city hummed around them, distant yet constant, but the penthouse felt like a haven. This, Victoria said softly, is the kind of love I wanted all along. Not fear or obsession, but choice and respect. Dominic wrapped an arm around her, holding her with gentle certainty. Every day I'll choose you, he said. Not because I can make you stay, but because I want to. They watched Lily laughing in the sun, free and unburdened. For the first time, their family felt complete. Not perfect, not without past scars, but grounded in the reality of effort, understanding, and acceptance. Through their journey, they learned invaluable lessons. Power in relationships must be balanced by respect. Love without boundaries becomes harmful. Trauma can distort devotion, but self-awareness and support can heal it. And courage in love means choosing connection while maintaining integrity, even when the past threatens to repeat itself. Victoria's return to the penthouse was not a submission, but a declaration. Dominic's embrace was no longer possessive but protective, informed by empathy rather than fear. Lily's laughter became the soundtrack of a home rebuilt on trust, not obligation. The skyline stretched before them, a mosaic of lights reflecting off glass towers, signaling the start of new beginnings. Their story had traversed desire, obsession, fear, and reconciliation. They had survived the intensity of their connection, refined by struggle, and emerged with a partnership capable of sustaining both passion and respect. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, Victoria turned to Dominic, her eyes steady and warm. "We'll keep choosing each other," she said. He kissed her forehead gently. "Every day, I promise." Lily ran back into their arms, and for the first time, the family felt whole. Not through wealth, not through power, but through commitment, understanding, and shared love. That's the end of our dark romance story. What did you think of Victoria and Dominic's intense journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful billionaire romance stories. Tomorrow, we're bringing another story that will leave you breathless. You won't want to miss it.